1. I got a fun story from my old job working at a campgrounds office. A little background info. This happened about 6 years ago in the northeastern part of the US. I worked in the office of a well-known family campground, think Fort Wilderness, but up north. We had all sorts of family activities, hay rides, mini golf, bingo, live music, plus much more. My sole job was to keep track of all the bookings and reservations for the year. We had 450 plus seasonal and night-to-night campsites, plus another 30 or so tent sites. It was a lot to keep track of. Thankfully, we had a very robust but old booking system. I'm not sure how old the software was, however I know the company who made it went out of business in 2001. And once I found an envelope with a floppy disk in it that said Reservation Software Update 1998. So yeah, very old. Anyways, for a piece of software that seemed very antiquated, it had a lot of extra tools and features. In theory, if you had it set up right, and if it worked, you could run the whole campground off it. Everything from online booking to payments. It could do all, in theory. However, no matter what myself or the owner did, we just could not get these features to work properly. The software would either allow double bookings, keep this issue in mind for later, fail to communicate with our server, or just outright crash. So after a few attempts, we just gave up and just used the main booking and renovation software. Fast forward a year or so. The original owner wants to downsize to a smaller campground and retire, so he puts the business up for sale and moves down south. Enter new owner, or AH for short. You know what I mean. As soon as I met him, I knew deep down inside that he was trouble. He came from money. His father and grandfather both ran very successful motel and hotel businesses, and from what I understand, they wanted him to do the same. He wasted no time in pissing off other staff. He had a very I'm right, you're wrong mindset, and he could not go 5 minutes without reminding you that he was the owner. In a matter of 2 months, all but 4 of our original staff quit. It was clear that he had no passion for the place. He only had one thing on his mind: money. Our rates went from $20-ish a night to over $50. He got rid of almost all campground activities. Scrapped the hayride tractor, tore down the outdoor stage, sold off the arcade, threw out the bingo equipment, and was looking into filling in the pool. He was delusional. It wasn't uncommon for him to go on hour-long rants about how he knows what he was doing, and if people for some reason didn't like how he was running the campground, they could leave, with no refund, of course. Eventually, he found out about the booking software's extra functions. He reveled at the idea of the whole booking process being automated and fully online, so he didn't have to interact with the public. I tried to explain to him multiple times that it was a horrible idea. I brought up the past issues we had had and how the company was no longer around to support the software. And if he really wanted to do that, he'd need to get new software. He didn't listen. He was too focused on bringing down staffing costs. Every time I brought it up, he just accused me of trying to save my job and how I need to just step aside and let him take care of things from now on. So I did. I went from handling all of the campground booking to just running the camp store. Every time the phone rang, I just let it go to our 10-minute-long recording, or rant, about how to book online. The outcome was as expected. Sat got double booked, payments weren't going through, families that booked a year in advance lost their reservations. It was a mess. It all came to a head 4th of July weekend. Until now, if the software double-booked a site, AH would just tell people who decided to stay to go to another open site. But he couldn't do that on this weekend. Keep in mind, we only had about 450 campsites. Over 570 campers showed up. The booking software had in some cases triple-booked campsites. People were pissed. He got yelled at so many times that weekend. Police were called, fights broke out over campsites. RVs got damaged. At one point, he got punched by a rightfully angry father when he refused to give a refund. By the end of the weekend, the campground reputation was done. Word had gotten out about the new owner and how bad the campground had gotten. I left shortly after. The campground sputtered on for about another year. Turns out he was bad with money and had run up about $1 million in debt. His father ended up having to bail him out of bankruptcy. The physical campground was a wreck, aside from what he got rid of. He also did no maintenance during his 2 years running the place. Trees and shrubs were overgrown, the grass was almost never cut, the bathrooms were a complete write-off, and the once crystal-clear pool had cattails growing in it. The campground went up for auction during COVID. I'm not sure what the new owners have planned for it. As far as he goes, from what I hear from the staff that stayed till the end, was that his dad was pissed. Turns out this was the third business he had ran into the ground. I'm not sure what the first two were. From what I can tell from Facebook, he got booted out by his father and now works at a tractor supply. 2. So years ago, I worked for a US chain of supermarkets that, like the Asterisk. I spent years there and worked a number of positions, but this story has to do with me being a buggy boy long before the global plague. This store was notorious for understaffing, a 24-hour supercenter serving over 20 communities, and the store ran with about 300 people on payroll when it needed 500 plus. I was one of 4 cart pushers on payroll to cover the parking lot 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It wasn't pretty. How did we manage? Simple, we cut corners. See, the safety rules required that we use a ratcheting safety strap any time we pushed more than 3 carts, plus no more than 10 at a time by hand or 20 in a trip with the remote pusher. We ignored that. We didn't use the straps, and my personal record was, I think, about 46 without assistance. But that was late-night cleanup in a lot of empty cars. Anyway, once in a while, management would catch the safety rules are absolute bug and breathe down our necks about it, and I got fed up with it. I was the only cart pusher on schedule for about 8 hours, and was told when I came in that I was expected to follow the rules to a T. So I got my strap and got to work. I did actually try, I took pride in my work, but I couldn't keep up with the demand, and by the time the store quit around 10 p.m., when the night shift came in, I was due to leave at 11, and the lot was still a mess. So I tracked down the night shift manager, since mine was long gone. I'm supposed to leave at 11. Do you want me to leave at 11, or when the lot is clear? When the lot is clear. He wasn't being a dick, and I liked the guy. My malice was directed at the day shift managers. I went back to report that the lot was clean at about 3 a.m. He told me he thought I left hours ago. I usually left with a clean parking lot and within 10 minutes of my scheduled time. I just shrugged and said matter-of-factly, that's how long it takes to do it the right way. Again, I wasn't trying to be a dick to him, but the store didn't like giving overtime of hours beyond what was scheduled, and I knew he would tell them about it. I didn't hear a single word about safety rules for months afterwards, and the managers looked sheepish when they saw me. Now I know, you're probably thinking that I was putting myself at risk of injury. Safety rules are always implemented because someone somewhere hurt themselves by not staying within those guidelines, and are apparently never written by paper pushers who have never done the job in their lives but think the rule sounds good on paper, regardless of what implementation would actually mean. To clear some of this up, the straps actually put us at a higher risk of injury, not lower. If you just put enough pressure to put tension on the strap, the carts had a tendency to buck and pull, becoming harder to safely control. The 2 ways around this are put less tension on the strap, which isn't complying with the safety regulation, or put so much tension on it that the front wheels come off the ground. But doing this can strain your arms and shoulders, especially when you do it hundreds of times a day. The number of buggies seemed to be pretty arbitrary, as the first time HR caught me pushing too many, I had 14, oh no, and fussed at me. I broke off 10, spun the line around, and pushed it up the small hill backwards, with one hand while giving her a big grin. One of my favorite stories working there. We had a guy in his 60s who pushed more than that all day long. I didn't start to struggle until I had around 20 in a line. But even then, that was manageable alone. Easy with help. Someone to guide and control the front. For the argument that my hard work meant that management would just expect people to keep it up and never hire more workers, you've clearly never shopped at these stores. Before self-checkouts were common, the meme was 20 registers, only 2 are open. They didn't care if you worked hard or not, or if there was coverage or not, or if customers had to wait or not. My hard work was a point of pride at the time, and appreciated by the third shift stalkers who wouldn't have to clean the lot at night. As for the pay, or working your wage, it was the highest paid job I had held at the time, and slackers who do the minimum made my life harder. So, to anyone who might be taking that attitude, I don't want to hear it. Pull your own weight and quit expecting someone else to cover you because you're lazy. The one valid argument is that the rules were there that if something happened, I could be blamed and thrown under the bus. This one is partially true. Laws and company policy would still have shielded me from most issues. At the worst, the most I could really do would be to scratch or ding a car. But the most that could really happen as a result would be firing. 3. 18 years ago. Not about, trust me, I know this one to the date. I was over at Dad's house and I needed a wrench. And coming from a long line of mechanics, I knew he'd have one available, as I didn't have my kit in my car, so I asked to borrow one. Dad, of course, said yes. Handed me the mechanic's toolbox, and just out of habit, I opened it and immediately noticed that a Craftsman 7x16 ratchet and wrench was missing. Again, I come from a long line of mechanics. Every tool has its place, be it in a drawer, box, or outlined on a pegboard. And I thought it was weird that Dad lost a wrench out of the spare house tool kit. "You're missing 716, I pointed out, showing him the missing slot. Now, Dad being Dad, just had to bust on me a bit, so looking me dead in the eyes and beaming a huge smile, he responded, "It was there when I gave it to you." Mind you, I hadn't left the kitchen. I hadn't so much as shifted my feet. I knew he was lying. He knew he was lying. But it had been ingrained in me since childhood that losing a tool is a death sentence. Now, I knew he was busting my balls and I let it go. But from that day forward, any time we needed something, he'd make a comment like, "Sure wish I had that 7x16 wrench that Coyote lost." Or, "You know what would fix it? That missing 7x16 wrench." This went on for months, so one day he made the usual tease me for losing a tool comment and I warned him. I looked him in the eyes and said, "Say it one more time, old man, and you're going to get that wrench every birthday, Father's Day, and Christmas for the rest of your natural life." A few hours passed. I asked him to hand me a tool and he said, "I can't, you lost it, remember?" I laughed and played it off, but it was on. And that was 18 years ago. Today, being Father's Day, he just received his 52nd Craftsman ratchet end 7x16 wrench. Since that day, he's tried telling me that he knows that I didn't lose it. I knew that already, that I don't need to buy it. Oh, I fucking do. And he's occasionally tried to say it was a different size or item to get a different present. But we both know that's not happening. They're everywhere. Every coffee can, junk drawer, cabinet, toolbox, pegboard, or spare nail in the house and garage contains a Craftsman 7x16 ratchet and wrench. You know how they say you're never more than 8 feet from a spider? Well, in Dad's world, you're never more than 7 feet from a Craftsman 7x16 ratchet and wrench. Because there are at least 2 in his truck at this point as well. When will it end? When the old bastard dies, that last wrench will go in his cold, dead hand so he can tighten bolts in hell, because I warned him. God damn it, I warned him. Happy Father's Day to all of you with weird traditions, jokes, and relationships with the man who made you who you are today. And if you need a wrench, hit me up, I know a guy. 4. This happened around 2018, give or take a year. I was in my mid-20s in the U.S. Army Infantry, and my rank was Specialist, one above Private First Class. Same pay as Corporal, but none of the responsibility. I was stationed on Schofield Barracks in Hawaii, which is a pretty small post. Now, for those of you not familiar with Army life, we do have a day-to-day job. We have to do daily physical training every morning with our platoons, then go eat breakfast and shower before being back by 9 a.m. in uniform to do whatever menial task leadership says to do that day. Occasionally, you get pulled away from the company for work details that higher levels of organization need done. For example, battalion needs X done and needs Y soldiers to do it, so battalion tells each company to send Z soldiers, and each company tells each platoon to send N soldiers. Details can last from an hour to over a month, and usually involve cleaning or organizing something. The thing is, sometimes details get lost in this game of telephone. So one day my squad leader tells me I'm getting put on a detail for the next 2 weeks. I'll do PT with the platoon, but then at 9 I'll report to this address and do whatever they need done. He vaguely says it's something about a warehouse, but he doesn't know what I'll be doing. Roger, Sergeant, not a problem. So next Monday after PT, I get dressed, put on my uniform, and head to the address. It's not a 5-minute drive from my house. I'm married, so I'm out of the barracks. I show up a few minutes early like a good soldier, and see it's a bunch of warehouses and a chain-link fence with a locked gate, with no one else around. No problem, chill in my car until someone arrives. 9:15 rolls around and no one shows. I text my squad leader to check the time and address. He says, yes, you're at the right place and time. Wait until someone arrives. Roger, Sergeant. 11. I'm still just screwing around on my phone in my car, no one in sight. Text Sergeant again. Tell him no one is showing up. He tells me to be back after lunch, someone will come. Roger, Sergeant. 1300, come back after having lunch with my wife, still no one. Wait 30 minutes and text him again. Sergeant says that I'm supposed to be there for 2 weeks. Someone will show up, just wait. Roger, Sergeant, I'll stop bothering you. So I wait another hour and a half, and then the highest-ranking person there, me, dismisses the detail, also me, for the day. Sergeant seems sure that's where I'm supposed to be, so that's where I went for the next 2 weeks. I stopped bothering him and just showed up at the warehouse every day at 9. Each day I took my lunches earlier and longer, and every day I let myself go home sooner. By the end, I think I spent less than 2 hours a day at the detail, but Sergeant told me to show up, and that's what I did. About a month later, I got put on another detail, and by another detail, I mean the one I was supposed to be on to begin with. I spent 2 weeks with like 10 other soldiers cleaning out the battalion's spare storage warehouse. My guess is either my squad leader was given the wrong date, or the detail was pushed back a month from the original date, and my squad leader didn't get the memo. No one ever seemed to question why I was needed for the detail I already did. 5. This story is about my previous job at a dealer group which I actually like pretty well, and still, I wanted in at a particular brand and settled on working at a different store for 6 months and bugging the GM for a position at that one store I wanted to work at. The GM is a great guy and could see that I very much wanted to transfer over there and helped me interview with upper management there, even though the 2 sales managers weren't really interested in a green pea, somebody new to sales. They gave in after me pestering and gave me a sales position reluctantly. In my first week there, the older manager pulled me into his office, kicked his feet up, and said something along the lines of, "Look, man, when you inevitably give up this job, just don't bother showing up. You know how many green peas actually make it? None. Sales is a dying breed, and you don't seem to have enough of an edge for it. You're too nice to be here, so do us a favor and just get out of here. Nobody gives notice in the car business." I took that to heart. My first month I hit commission and everybody was blown away. After over 2 years of fighting their top seasoned veteran for first place, and winning a few times, and making an absolute killing, my wife and I found out we were having a baby. As much as I loved the job itself, having fun with my preferred brand in the process, gaining some loyal families and referrals, it was time to step away from this super high-stress job and focus on family. It was a great experience, but always hindered by the sales managers trying to make me miserable. Some days I'd be laughing and chatting it up with my prospects and having a good time. They'd go out of their way to either mess my deals or just piss me off. Other co-workers told me that they frequently heard those managers complaining that I was too happy doing the work I was. As we got the news of our upcoming little one, I found out as well that the managers had been taking away bonuses I'd earned fair and square, called spiffs, from me for months during COVID. It was definitely time to take the money and leave. At this point, I had become the store's manufacturer-certified EV specialist, and had the entire store's pre-order program running by myself. I was the only one certified to do it, and managers didn't know shit about the real process. January 1st, 2022 hits. I walk in 3 hours late for my shift, not wearing my business casual. I was never late for more than a minute or two without letting them know, so they just assumed I was there, I suppose, and never went to check. Manager looks me up and down, looks at the clock, looks at me again, looks at the clock, and mumbles, "You're not dressed for work." "Yeah, because I don't work here anymore." Bewildered, he repeatedly asked me what I meant by that. I just told him I quit. Thanks for screwing me out of my hard-earned bonuses for a year and trying to screw me out of my happiness. "But you can't quit like this. It's not like you to do that. Where's your notice? We only have a couple of guys left. We can't cover your shifts or your pre-orders." "Well, you see, I'm just doing exactly as I was told. Have a nice new year without me." Hey everybody, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to Revenge is Ice Cream, episode 152. And thank you very much to everybody who allowed me to use their stories in this video. Before you go, I'd appreciate it if you hit the like button with all the fury of 1,000 suns. Or, just click it. That also works. Okay, let's see. We are on Monday. What do I have to do today? Oh yeah, I need to try and get Volvic from somewhere. It's a bottled water brand I like. Having a hard time getting it. Supplies must be low everywhere. But I'll find somewhere. It's just some places only let you have a certain amount, and the place that usually lets me have what I want, they're kind of limiting supplies right now, and they're out at certain times. It's fine. I'll work it out. But apart from that, let's move along to Hellfreezer's question of the day. And in the theme with hard to find products, what is a product that you really enjoy that you just can't get anymore? They don't make it. They may not make it in your country. Or maybe you just imagined it in a dream. Probably not so much of that last one. For me, there's a list of them. There's Cadbury's Fuses. That was a chocolate bar. It was everything but the kitchen sink in it. It was great. There was these curry things I used to get out of a local food store. It was kind of a cardboard tray of curries, curry sauce and chicken on top of it. Can't even remember the brand, but I stopped doing them years ago. And it's many, many other things, but I won't go on about it. I mean, well, you do know it is well known around here, but my love of Watermelon Rockstar. Although I've cut way back in the energy drinks recently, because my body went, no, we don't like that. We would like more carrots, please. Yeah, and more green stuff. So I'm doing that instead. So what are some of your favorites? Please leave it in a comment below. Okay, and with that, I'm going to head off for now. So until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourselves.